to Crime Over Wine Weekly. It's Monday, April 1st. I'm Michelle Heron. Here are your crime headlines. Rust armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed will remain behind bars after a judge denied her request for a new trial. On Friday, a judge rejected her plea and ordered she remain behind bars until her sentencing in April. The Rust armorer is facing 18 months behind bars in connection to the death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Her sentencing is set for April 15th. Chad Daybell's triple murder trial is set to begin today in Boise, Idaho. The Doomsday author and his wife, Lori Daybell, were charged with the murder in the deaths of Lori's children, Tylee and JJ. Chad is also charged with murder in the death of his first wife, Tammy. Lori's trial played out last year. She was found guilty on all charges, and the judge sentenced her to 3 consecutive life sentences in prison. Chad's trial is expected to take 8 to 10 weeks. Gypsy Rose Blanchard announces she is split from her husband. And no, this is not an April Fool's joke. She made the announcement on her private Facebook page that she and her husband, Ryan Anderson, have separated 3 months after she was released from prison for the role in the murder of her mother. Gypsy Rose was released from prison on December 28th after serving 7 of her 10-year sentence. The pair wed in 2022. We are so glad that you guys are joining us here on Crime Over Wine Weekly. I can't believe we are now 4 months into 2024. It seems like January took forever, and now we're just speeding through all of the months. But, let's go ahead and kick off this April Fool's Day with some wine. Hey, Liam.
Hey, I was just thinking literally today about how all of a sudden we're at the end of March and into April. Like, I feel like we just started March like 2 seconds ago. That's so funny. You said that. We're just like in sync.
Yes, definitely. And I think we're definitely, we are in sync because the wine that you picked this week is one I've already tried it and I've fallen in love with it. And so when you picked it, I was like, yes, I am so happy that you picked this.
It's so funny you said that because, did you hear that? So, because when I picked it out and I saw it in the store, I was like, oh, Michelle's going to love this bottle. So I'm really glad that you said that, because I very much so, I feel like I won, with the friendship, test there. So I am very much so appreciative of that. But yeah, so we are drinking, and I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm about to butcher it. So I apologize in advance. It's called Freixenet Pinot Grigio, Freixenet. It has a floral and delicate fruity character with subtle hints of crisp citrus. You can enjoy it chilled for an aperitivo or pair with a seafood, vegetarian dish, pasta, fried fish, or sushi. Have we drank this one before, Michelle, on this podcast?
No. We have not, but I picked it a couple of months ago because of the bottle. Yes, you know me.
Yeah.
And I actually saved the bottle, and I have like 2 flowers like sitting in it because it's just super nice.
Wait, I think I may have to do the same thing. That's actually a great idea because it definitely gives that. You could definitely do that.
Yeah, but it's very like light, and it's very like, to me, springy, which is what we're coming in, so hold on, I can't wait any longer. Can we cheers?
Cheers, Michelle. Yes. You're like trying to delay. Let's just go for it. Why are we even talking anymore?
Yes, it is like, to me, a true like Pinot Grigio, just very light. It's like cold, and it's easy to drink. It's a really good one to have, as you're like having conversations with friends, maybe talking about true crime, or gossiping about,
that's an idea.
Whatever the latest gossip is.
Yeah. Well, listen, you, as I was just telling you, I've just had a day. And so I do need, I need a little gossip sesh. So maybe we'll have to hang back after we recorded this episode to talk about that. But you're right. It's a very classic Pinot Grigio. It's very middle of the road kind of Pinot Grigio. It's really not, it's not going into any sort of extremes, which is what a Pinot Grigio is supposed to be, right? It's not too dry, it's not too sweet. It really truly is just a Pinot Grigio, and I really, really like it. And so I see, we're just like right here. I do, every time I drink a new bottle of wine, though, I always think, what would Heather think? And so I am thinking that with this as well. I feel like this would be one that Heather would be on board with, because it's very much so because of how centrist it is.
Yeah, I think it would be if you're kind of like maybe not sure, like say you're going to a gathering and you just want to bring,
Yeah,
a really nice bottle of wine. And I think this one, just by the way the bottle looks, it's very elegant and classy with
right.
like the detail in the glass. So like already it's gonna look really nice. And then, you know, if you don't know like what people like, it is a really good kind of middle of the road. Like pretty much everyone is
Absolutely.
really gonna like it, you know. I think it would be
Yeah.
perfect for like a gift if you don't want to show up empty-handed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and especially again, like the bottle is so cute, that like like you'd see that like I would be into it just based on the bottle alone. Which like by the way, there's like people like wineries do not put I think some wineries anyways do not put enough thought into the bottle. Because like I 1000% of the time I'm looking at the wine at the wine and thinking, yeah, sure, like the type of wine, that kind of stuff, like where it's from, all that jazz, sure. But like most of the time, I'm just like, that is a really cool bottle. I want to drink that wine because of the bottle. And so they really like good for these folks for recognizing that and being like, yeah, let's really lean into that.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, there's no need for, with this particular bottle, you don't need to put it in, like a wine bag, or you don't
Right.
have to dress it up
Mm,
because it's
yeah.
already there. Like anything that you would do would then be too much. Like
Yeah.
the bottle
That's right.
is like just a gift in itself.
Yeah, I could see, maybe putting some like clear cellophane around. Is cellophane is naturally clear, or no? I think it can be like anyways. Putting some like clear, plastic around it, and like with a little bow. Like I could see that, like if you want to do something a little bit extra, but you really don't have to. You're so right about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. So, cheers to that. And honestly,
yeah,
like it's not it looks like it's more expensive than what it is.
true.
And I feel like it tastes more expensive than what it is too. So,
Right.
you know, I feel like you check so many boxes with, the price point, the way that the bottle looks, the way that it tastes, like it's
Mm-hmm.
just a really good it's a good wine to
Yeah.
give or give to yourself.
Yeah, all right. Or yeah, which is the best kind of gift you can give to yourself, I believe. Well, Michelle, so we had the grand finale this week on Crime Over Wine, the Johnny Ghosh case. We wrapped that up. Man, oh man, I know you've heard about this case before. Did you know all of that was going to happen? Because I'll tell you, I knew the case and I didn't know all of that was going to happen when I was researching it to begin with.
I kind of did, but I really just appreciated just like listening to you and Megan like talk, and kind of go down with like the different, just like flesh out the conspiracies that have been
Mm.
out there with this case. Also, like I feel like I would be friends with Megan in real life. I've never met
Oh
her.
yeah,
I've known
for
of
sure.
her, but she
Yeah.
she was really fun to listen to, and I really liked just her thoughts and her reactions to the different developments in the case and things like that. So shout out to Megan.
Yeah. Always a shout
But
out to Megan. She's a queen.
I just, my heart goes out to this mother. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Like,
Mm.
I had kind of like always believed that Johnny did come and knock on the door, but then after listening to you guys and like really fleshing out like what our minds can kind of create when you have been through some really traumatic experiences and just the stress that she's been under for so many years, like
Right.
you guys kind of like swayed my kind of
Mm.
my opinion a little bit, because you guys were right. If you've ever had like such realistic dreams that you are like, I would bet money that this definitely happened,
Right.
you know, and maybe that is what happened here. But I just, I don't, I really wonder. I would like to think that if I was kidnapped at the same age as Johnny, that I wouldn't want to leave my mom in that state of like
Yeah.
wondering and panic and like just that state of like sadness and missing missing me, like. So I would like to think that as a child like Johnny wouldn't do that, but at the same time if say he was like kidnapped and then put into this like child sex trafficking like rank, like we don't know what he's been told. We don't know like what substances he may have been given. You know, it's kind of like you're like brainwashed into a sense, but also like if it is true, he's seen like a side of this world, you know, like if he's like you're scared, you know, you're so scared that if you don't listen to the people that have taken you, you know, what else could happen. So I kind of, it's a lot to really think about and consider.
Well, yeah, and to that point too, Michelle, like just the tricks, like talking about like tricks on your brain, right? Like I feel like I could see like 15 years of this, right? Like of, you know, of Johnny. Again, if we're going to go down this rabbit hole, that this is the, you know, Noreen, the story that Noreen told actually happened, then like the tricks on your brain that, you know, is played for 15 years and just like a constant state of paranoia. Like I could totally see that being like, you know, I could see that happening for that reason, and just like eventually to your point of just like wanting your mom to know exactly what happened to you and know why, you know, you can't come back ever again, and like why she can't come looking for you, and like, you know, and that kind of thing. So I could totally see that happening, honestly. I feel like the more reasonable explanation, in my opinion, is that Noreen, after 15 years of this, had tricks played on her brain, that like her brain is just in this constant state of stress. And literally the other day, who was I talking to? And I was like, and I was literally saying, I was like, I can't. Oh, I was talking to my therapist. And I was like, I was telling her the story, and I was like halfway through the story, and I was like, wait, I don't know if I dreamt this or if this actually happened to me. And it's like you can have those vivid dreams, and especially like I can't imagine how many times she has, you know, in the middle of the night had that exact dream where like, you know, where it was, you know, Johnny coming home, or like even wanted, like even that daydream of Johnny just walking through the front door, and just eventually it just feels more real than every other dream that she's ever had. You know what I mean? So I could so I feel like I have to land on that. Just because I feel that just feels A, better to me, and B, feels like Noreen, like like for how I feel about how Noreen has handled this whole situation, like it makes me feel better for her, that like this was just a really hard thing that she feels better about at the end of the day. But like to have him right there and to have him go away, like I like that heartbreak must just be so bad. And so I feel like for her sake, I almost want it to be a dream, because the reality of him being out there and her not being able to have him, it almost feels worse. Maybe not to her, but I feel like it would. So I don't know. If she believes it's real, then it's real, in my opinion. Sure. And again, she reminds me a lot of Sandy Smith as well, Stephen Smith's mother. Just in the just veracity of just not wanting to give up on this horrific situation that happened to your child. And so for that reason, I want to be in her corner no matter what. You know, if she says the like an asteroid came down and you know, and filled with aliens, and that's how this whole thing played out, like sure, that's what happened. But like again, just for her sake, I feel like I kind of want it to be a dream.
Also, can we talk about the guy that the CNN reporter found?
Yeah, Paul Bonacci. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he was basically the one that wasn't like really reliable, and he was never really
Mm-hmm.
interviewed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, which pisses me off even to this day, of like why not interview the dude and like verify his information? That never made sense to me. Even if he was considered an unreliable witness, like surely you can get the information that you can use in court by verifying it yourselves. That never makes any sense to me. But then it's like, again, I go down a total. There's so many different rabbit holes to be had here. So I'll just like I'll just preface all that. But like, then maybe it's, you know, then for that reason, maybe you question his entire story, right? And frankly. Because like, you know, because Megan at one point I think said something along the lines of like, okay, well, how much of this information involving his birthmarks and his, you know, his identifying features and the, you know, parts of the story were broadcast to the for the world to see. And it seemed like a solid amount of it. It seemed like a lot of, you know, of those identifying features that, you know, may have happened, but like not so much like the background of how it all happened, you know, in terms of like, there was like, I think about like that burn mark on his leg, that on Johnny's leg, that was from his brother's tailpipe. So like Paul seemed to know that information, but like, maybe I don't know, but it also could, again, this is just how my brain is going about the Johnny Gosch case, but it could also be, you know, one of those situations where it was like, yeah, and he had, like, if I remember correctly, he had like a burn on his leg, right? And Noreen was like, yeah, like from his brother's tailpipe, in like, so maybe he didn't even know all that. So anyways, I say all that to say is that we don't really know how much of the information could have been readily available to Paul. If we're going to, you know, assume that he isn't exactly 100% reliable. I have to imagine, though, frankly, just because of the depth of information that he was able to provide to Noreen, that, again, going down the whole of, you know, Noreen believed Paul, and so let's believe Paul because Noreen believed Paul. You know, I have to imagine that a lot of that information was accurate and was good information. But it seemed a little too good to be true, in my opinion. It seemed potentially a little bit too good to be true. But again, I just go back. Regardless of any of that, like, police should have at least sat him down and gotten the story from him on their own, and verified what they could, so that way they could go down that hole to just you know, brush him off as an unreliable source. Just seems completely unreasonable to me, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you're saying that you're doing everything that you can to try and find him and bring him home, but yet there's someone out there that, you know, you're hearing has some information, might have some information. If you're doing everything you can, why was that person not interviewed? Like, you know what I mean? I just
Right.
kind of like, that doesn't fall under what my definition of we're doing everything we
Absolutely.
can
No,
is.
definitely not. Yeah, no, definitely not. And then again, we talk about, like, we use the word conspiracy so many times in this episode, and it does feel like a giant conspiracy to me. But like, if you go down the conspiracy path here, where it's like, you know, in this smallish town during this time where, you know, police officers, frankly, were up to kind of some shady stuff, depending on what department you were in. So like, maybe the police officers, you know, had some sort of connection with this guy that Paul was accusing of doing horrible things to him and other people. Maybe, like, I don't, he seemed to be well connected. So like, like, again, there's just so many different. Again, we could be sitting here and doing a whole another episode on this, because there's so many different avenues you can take, and like, after you go down one avenue, it's like there's a whole new set of possibilities down that avenue. And so I don't know. It's unfortunate. I don't really feel like we'll ever know the full truth about Johnny Gosch. I really don't. I think that, you know, maybe we might get a little bit closer to a resolution at some point, but I don't really see that happening. I don't really see that happening fully anytime soon, in my opinion, just because there's too many unknowns and too many things that just don't add up fully, and, you know, totally subject to all sorts of you know, all sorts of imagination to be had, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I will say, at least this is a case that people are still talking about.
Very true.
And, you know, you guys mentioned it in the podcast. We've mentioned it when we talk about other cold cases. You know, time does change things. You know,
Absolutely.
people's alliances and their commitments to people around them change, and sometimes people pass away, and then other people feel safer sharing things that they might know. So I think that hopefully, before Johnny's mom passes away,
Mm,
someone will come forward and share something that can help
yeah.
give her more answers. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, and and then on that note too, in the meantime, right, like, she has done so much to help other people, right? And that's always, to me, like, those are my favorite cases, right? When it's like you have this horrific, horrible situation that just like does not make you feel any better at all, no matter how many answers you get, but yet you can make changes so that way the next time that something like the next Johnny Gosh, isn't as bad, right? And so there's like there's Johnny Gosh bill, right? The federal law that says that you have to investigate children right away. You don't have you can't wait. You have to investigate them right away. I think about how many children must have been saved from that. I think about how many children must have been saved from having their face on the milk carton, all because Johnny Gosh was the first one. And so there's just so many good, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which again I think I said on the episode, but in my opinion does the Lord's work. And so there's so many things that were put into place as a result of Johnny Gosh, and it sucks, I guess, that like he had to, like, whatever actually happened to him had to have happened to him in order for all this type of stuff to happen, and to be put into place. But at least it did, at least it was. And so that a silver lining, I guess, that like, that's, we're in a much better place now when it comes to investigating missing children, all because of Johnny Gosh.
Yeah, he's really changed just the space of how missing kids are and these types of cases are handled in America.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, we could be sitting here probably talking about this for a whole nother episode. Let us know if you want us to, because I'm sure Michelle would be down for that. And Heather would probably come out of her week-long vacation to make that happen. But yeah, so let's move on. We have a whole episode of cases to touch on today, and some new ways that we're going to end up doing that.
Yes, coming up after the break, more challenges in the search for Sebastian Rogers. Plus, find out why his mother has left town in the midst of the search.
But first, 18 years ago today, April 1st, Brian Schaefer disappeared from a bar in Columbus, Ohio. He has not been seen since, and he was never actually seen leaving the bar. If you know anything, call the Columbus Police Department at 614-645-4545 and listen to his story on episode 29 of Crime Over Wine. Crime Over Wine is sponsored by BetterHelp. As someone who's used therapy for years, I know that finding a therapist can sometimes be a stress on its own, juggling your full-time job, your family, your friends, your podcast, and trying to find the right therapist on top of that can almost feel impossible. That's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist that works for you on your terms. It's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to one of 33,000 licensed professional therapists in as little as a few days. And because finding a new therapist is a lot like finding a new bottle of wine, if you don't jive with your therapist, you can easily switch to a new one at no additional cost. You can get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp by going to betterhelp.com/crimeoverwine. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/crimeoverwine for 10% off your first month. Join over 4 million people who decided to get help and get happy with BetterHelp.
The search for a missing teenager with autism in Tennessee faces a new challenge. The United Cajun Navy, a nonprofit organization that arranges rescue teams, called off its search for Sebastian Rogers, scheduled for Friday. The 15-year-old disappeared from his bedroom in late February in Middle Tennessee. TBI agents have found no clue surrounding Sebastian's disappearance. In a post on social media, the United Cajun Navy said the search had been called off and they will, quote, regroup and pull back due to, quote, increasing safety concerns in the upcoming Easter holiday. The safety concerns are related to alleged death threats. The group says this does not mean that the search for Sebastian is over, but it's unclear when they will return. Meanwhile, Sebastian's mom and stepfather have left their home in Hendersonville, Tennessee. That's where Sebastian lived. Chris Proudfoot told Nancy Grace that he is going back to work in West Tennessee, and Katie Proudfoot left with him. She did not know when she would return to Hendersonville. The Proudfoots have said that they've been cleared by law enforcement. So two crazy developments in this case, Liam. First of all, I think it's it's just kind of crazy that his mom is left,
Yeah.
like, but she's also said he could be anywhere. I can see that it would be hard for her to be alone, you know, in this situation if he were her husband was to go back to work and she's there, but I I don't know. I think a lot of people would say, well, if that was me, I wouldn't leave the house, but that's also kind of like you never know what you would do in the situation because you've never been in it. You can say that you would do one thing, but you just never know.
Yeah, and like unfortunately it could be potentially just her kind of succumbing to the reality of the situation that she's in, right? Like succumbing to the, possibilities of what may have actually happened to her son. So there's that. There's been a lot of questions about the parents, right? And like for a lot of them frankly unfair and unfounded, right? I mean, everyone wants to go after the parents first. To be clear, you said that that they've been cleared by law enforcement. They said that police have not said that to my knowledge, which like I don't know if they would or they wouldn't. I feel like at this point the rumor mill has gotten to a point that police probably would have at some point said that they have cleared them if they really have publicly. That's my opinion. Again, I say the same thing about Summer Wells, and we covered that on the podcast. And there was a lot of blame cast against the parents for that one, against Summer's parents, and police have still not to this day said that they cleared Summer's parents. And anyways, point being is like I like in these types of situations, like the rumor mill can just go insane, and it's just I would, anyone who's listening to this who may be involved in that type of situation, like give it a little bit of a break here, right? Like we don't know what we don't know in this situation at all. And so I have to say that about that because it feels like it's getting out of control a little bit from their perspective. Again, I think like keeping an eye on them, I think is fair, right? But basically incriminating them before they have before we even know what happened to Sebastian is very premature.
And also like the these death threats that the United Cajun Navy group say that
Oh
they've
yeah,
gotten, like I honestly cannot think of any reason that would justify sending a death threat period to anybody. Like I don't really,
yeah, especially a
especially a
volunteer
stranger.
group. Yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
these are not the enemy here, right? Like by far.
So I just don't understand that. And I think like people get behind a keyboard or they get behind a screen and they forget that words like have value and words matter. And like so now, because of people sending these types of messages, like now you're a search people that could be searching and potentially finding Sebastian or finding clues to where he may be is has now been eliminated, at least right
Right.
now, because it's just not safe for them to be doing. They have to kind of regroup and figure out where they're going to go from there. But it's just like, how has that helped the situation at
Right.
all? It,
Well,
it hasn't.
right. And like certainly it distracts from the main mission here, right? That like these people should be prioritize, their priority, right, is to look for Sebastian. And like these investigators too, probably, resources are now being dedicated to finding out where these death threats came from. And it's not helping the situation at all. Right. And it's like the bottom line is like we should be figuring out where Sebastian is. I mean, that's all that anyone should be caring about. Who's involved in the situation, who cares about the situation. And it feels like we like it's still evolving, right? Because I remember when like it seemed pretty straightforward of like unfortunately a teen with autism kind of just like wandered out of the house potentially and is they're looking for him, and now all of a sudden it just feels like we're getting further and further and further away, like in terms of like scope, and like there's just so much there, but like at the same time not a whole lot there, if that makes sense. Because it's like like at some point, like what am I trying to say? At some point we should, like have a little bit of a clearer idea of exactly what happened. And it doesn't really feel like we're at that point, and there's just a lot more questions and shadows that are cast over the situation the longer that it plays out. It feels like that like maybe feeds these rumors a little bit. But that's just where we're at, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of noise that's going
Right.
on, and it's like, you know, cut through the noise and just focus on the main objective here, and that's finding Sebastian. Where did he go? Where is he?
Mm-hmm.
Is he okay? Let's bring him home.
Yeah.
So one thing that I found that was interesting is Nancy Grace asked Katie Proudfoot, who is Sebastian's mom, she said, you know, what do you think happened to Sebastian? And she seems to think that he was taken or is with somebody. So not
Interesting.
really any evidence out there to um to confirm that, but that's just, you know, like we always talk about a mother's intuition, and it sounds like that's what her intuition kind of telling her. You know, they've used lots of search canines to try and get Sebastian scent, and it took them to a retention pond that was in the area, but it stops there. And they've drained that retention pond, they've gone back to it multiple times, they found nothing. It's just this scent, you know? So
Hmm.
who knows? But we've said it before, we'll say it again. If you have any information about Sebastian Rogers, call 1-800-TBI-FIND. And Liam, what do you have for us this week?
Oh man, well, I also have a throwback to a case that we've been following for a little bit. It's the case of Brian Smith. He's accused of killing two, or convicted of killing two Native Alaskan women, Kathleen Henry and Veronica Abuchuk. Advocates in Anchorage believe there is unfinished business to be had in that murder case. The so-called memory card murderer was convicted of the two murders last month, but groups have organized protests outside of the Anchorage Police Department, calling on investigators and prosecutors to charge another person a witness as well. If you remember from the trial, prosecutors presented text and Facebook messages Brian had sent to a friend urging him to come see 30-year-old Kathleen Henry's body after he had already killed her in an Anchorage, Alaska motel room. Well, protesters have argued that the friend, who I am not going to name here since he has not been charged with any crime, should be held accountable as well. In a change.org petition with more than 2,200 signatures, they said they believe the friend should be charged with hindering prosecution and failure to report a violent crime. Investigators said they would not be pursuing charges against the friend until more evidence is presented. And according to the Alaska Department of Law, the aggravated nature of Kathleen Henry's murder will earn Brian Smith a mandatory 99-year sentence. Brian will appear in court in July for sentencing in Veronica Abuchuk's murder, for which he faces an additional 30 to 99 years in prison. So just, again, another one of the situations that just like is, fogging the situation quite a bit, right? Because it's like, it's, these people who get involved in these situations and like organized protests, like often, and like, again, I say that because like, I'm also one of those people who like get involved when like I have no business getting involved in a situation. But like they, don't know the full story. And so I feel like there's a lot of things that we, could find out about this witness and about Brian that like we don't really know about right now, and like, or maybe we won't ever know about it, but investigators know it. You know what I mean?
I just can't get over like how he sent his friend these
Mm-hmm.
messages like,
Yeah.
hey, come look at this. Like I I
Yeah.
don't think I have a friend period that would ever A, do something like that, but then B, like
Brag about it
try to
afterwards.
get
Yeah.
me to, yeah, like that's insane to me. And the first thing out of my mouth would be like, what in the world? Like I don't want to be tied to that in any way. Like,
Yeah.
so it makes you wonder, like, what did the friend reply? Did the friend like come over and
Mm-hmm.
see it? Like,
Yeah, sure. Well, and too, like maybe this friend, is cooperating with police in other ways. You know what I mean? And so like maybe they, under the an agreement of immunity. So like we don't really know about that, or maybe they're looking into this dude because like to that point, like right, like if he did come to look at it, or at the very least like you saw these text messages and didn't do anything about it, I wonder why Brian texted that friend to begin with. You know what I mean? Because it's like what kind of relationship do they have what does Brian know about this dude? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not accusing him of anything, but maybe that's just what investigators are thinking at this point, that like maybe there's more there than any of us really know, because at the end of the day, someone who has done these horrible things and is, of the age, I think he's like 50, in his 50s. Someone who's done these horrible things, clearly has friends who like he doesn't mind just like sharing this information with, probably has more skeletons in the closet than we're aware of. And so like, I would be surprised if they were looking at more victims to potentially tie back to Brian, and maybe back to this other dude in some way, shape, or form, in some way, in some involvement. You know what I mean? Like, so it feels like they are very much so still looking at information, and looking at stuff to move this forward beyond just like, like getting this guy for hindering a prosecution. Like, it feels like there's more to be had there potentially.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, because it's just like not adding up. You know what I mean?
Well, it just doesn't fit. Like, again, like, how obsessed I am with serial killers. And like Brian does not meet the definition of serial killer at the moment. But point being, like, he's exhibiting serial killer like behavior. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the the brashness of it, like in terms of the not really like being very open about doing this kind of situation, like that is serial killer 101. I feel like, just being able to, like, not being able to stop talking about the things that he did. And so point being is like if like that feels like the right path to go down, is like, is looking into what more could be out there that we just don't know about yet. Like, maybe this is just the two situations that we have nailed him on. And so I don't know. I would just urge patience, right, from these people who are protesting, because I feel like there could be like, we don't want to rush anything. Like, we're not trying, we shouldn't rush prosecutions in any way, shape, or form, or investigations, because that's when people get through the cracks, or like mistakes happen. So
I think there's a fine line between like advocating for justice and like being an advocate for it, and then hindering a case or getting involved in a case. You can really want
right.
justice, but that doesn't mean that you get involved and take matters into your own hand. And you can support investigators and law enforcement and prosecutors. You can support these people who are coined with handling that part of it without hindering a case, or potentially ruining something. You know what I mean? Because if you take matters in, there's reasons for why there are certain processes set in place, and if you don't follow that, that can break the case. Like, that can make it to where it doesn't stand in the court of law, and now you really don't have justice.
Right. Well, and these people are like blasting this dude's name, his face, like all over the internet. And so to that point, like, that could harm something, right? Or at the very least, if he's cooperating and everything's fine, and he is doing what he's supposed to do, and we just don't know about that yet, or at all, then that you're just blasting him out, calling him a potential criminal, when you don't even know the full story. And so point being is like, let's hold our horses here a little bit. Let's let police do their jobs. And frankly, just be happy-ish, as happy as we can be in the situations, that like that Brian is probably looking at 200 years in prison. And like, again, that's easily the rest of his life, obviously. And so let's count the win where we can get it, I suppose.
Yeah, they've secured the conviction, which is a huge step forward. Now let's sit tight and wait for the sentencing. Because the main thing here is someone who probably has a sick mind is off the streets.
Right, absolutely. Well, coming up right after the break, we have a new format for you all, to bring you all missing people. The cases that need your attention are coming up right after this.
Hello, Crime Over Wine listeners. I am Rachel.
And I'm Heather.
We are the hosts of Like Mother, Like Murder.
We bring you the good, the badass, and the crime.
Each week, we bring you stories from missing and murdered
to survivors and women who empower you.
And of course, some mom talk sprinkled in.
Check us out wherever you get your podcasts at Like Mother, Like Murder.
And give us a follow on social media so that we can say hi.
Okay, love you, bye.
Okay, love you, bye.
Hello, everybody. This is Liam Collins, the host of the podcast Crime Over Wine, and I'm about to make your Wine Wednesdays so much better. We know that there is nothing better than hanging out and listening to your favorite true crime podcast over your favorite bottle of wine, and that's where we come in. Every week, we share a new head-scratching true crime story while reviewing your new favorite bottle of wine. So your new true crime adventure is waiting for you. Crime Over Wine drops new episodes every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Police in Harnett County, North Carolina, that's just north of Fayetteville, are searching for a missing 28-year-old woman who may be in Florida by now. Shelby went missing from her home in North Carolina on March 21st, and her family actually believes that she may have left her home willingly. But Shelby is a mother to a 4-year-old boy, so Shelby's mom says it's not like her to not contact anyone for multiple days for that reason. Plus, just last week, police in Broward County, Florida, which is the county where Fort Lauderdale is, said they found her car being driven by two men that the family did not recognize. And so Shelby's family flew down to Broward County to look for her there. Her family says she is incredibly generous and likely would have stepped up to help someone in need, even at her own detriment. Shelby has short brown hair, brown eyes, and is about 5'10" and weighs about 135 pounds. If you have any information, call the Harnett County Sheriff's Office at 910-893-0300.
I'm really hoping here that her generosity wasn't taken advantage of or used against her. Because it's just insane that her car was found in Florida, but it's being driven by these two guys. The family of a young black pregnant mother found dead in a Kansas City park are desperate to know why the investigation into her death has stalled. Alasia Gilliam was found dead in a field near Dunbar Park on February 19th. She died from multiple gunshot wounds. That's according to her death certificate. Alasia was a pregnant mother of 4 children. The night she was murdered, she left her kids with her mother to go visit her boyfriend, but she never returned. Investigators say they are making progress in identifying the person of interest, but they are offering a $25,000 reward for information. If you have any information about Alasia Gilliam, call the Kansas City Police Department at 816-581-0679.
You know, I always hate to hear about a pregnant woman who bad things potentially have happened to her, but it's also mothers too, because it's, you know, like moms, kind of like we're talking about the same thing with Shelby, how like moms don't just leave their kids, you know, and so that to me is like an extra trigger. So again, if you know anything, please call and, you know, help out. Turning now to Corpus Christi, Texas. Police need help finding a Texas A&M student who disappeared in the middle of the night. 21-year-old Caleb Harris was last seen in his apartment by his roommates in the early morning hours of March 4th of this year. Now, earlier that night, his roommates say they played video games together for about an hour before the friends all went outside to play with a puppy that belonged to one of Caleb's roommates' girlfriend. And that event is captured on Ring doorbell video, so it's substantiated that much. Then around 2 a.m, Caleb ordered Uber Eats, and his roommates saw Caleb doing this and told him that they were about to go to sleep. Caleb sent several Snapchats over the next hour or so, one of Caleb walking the puppy through the apartment complex parking lot, and then another of what looked like a bridge over a small drainage culvert. And investigators were able to figure out that that bridge was just a few hundred feet from Caleb's apartment. Caleb's phone pinged for one last time around 3:12 in the morning, just 8 minutes before the Uber Eats driver left Caleb's order outside of his apartment as requested. By 11 that morning, his roommates had woken up, found Caleb's keys and his wallet in their apartment, his Uber Eats order outside of the apartment door, and his truck parked outside. But Caleb and his phone were both nowhere to be found. Police say they have interviewed all of Caleb's roommates and the Uber Eats driver and have ruled them all out as suspects, and Caleb's father told KIII-TV that he is 100% confident that police will find Caleb. Police are focusing their search on an area just behind Caleb's apartment complex, too. If you know anything about Caleb's disappearance, call Corpus Christi Police at 361-886-2600.
A woman is facing charges in connection to the disappearance of another woman in Washington, D.C. China Crawford has been missing since October, 5 months after her disappearance, and the 25-year-old still has not been found. But on March 27th, the Metropolitan Police Department announced LaShawn Washington had been charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and obstruction of justice in connection to China's case. The 32-year-old is currently being held with no bond. Now, it's unclear just what the connection is between the two women, but the search is still on for China. So if you have any information about what happened to her, call Metropolitan Police at 202-727-9099.
A National Guard Army sergeant in New York is missing from Poughkeepsie. Police say 43-year-old Sergeant Nicholas Faust was last seen at a bar the morning of March 23rd. He was wearing scrubs or possibly cargo pants and a sweater and glasses. Faust is about 5'8" with brown eyes and brown hair. He drives a silver Nissan Rogue with duct tape on the driver's side bumper. If you know anything about Sergeant Faust's disappearance, email the New York State Police at crimetip@troopers.ny.gov.
About 70 teams of drone operators from law enforcement agencies in Wisconsin took part in a large-scale search operation for 3-year-old Elijah View. The toddler was reported missing on February 20th. Search efforts have been held daily by local, state, and federal law enforcement. Elijah's mom and boyfriend have been arrested in connection to the case. Her boyfriend told police that he fell asleep while Elijah was standing next to his bed praying. This was used as a form of punishment. When he woke up, he told police Elijah was gone and called 911. The boyfriend is due in court this week, but if you have any information as to where Elijah may be, call authorities in Wisconsin.
Man, I have a really bad feeling about that one. Praying is a form of punishment, and that was the last time that he was seen. Like, what else was being done to him? Oh gosh.
It is a tragic situation. Apparently they have found a blanket that was his on a road during one of these searches. So, I mean, hopefully he's found.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, those are all the cases that we think should be on y'all's radar this week. Hopefully y'all like the new format. This feels like a way to give you guys as many cases as possible and give you guys as many action items as possible coming out of this episode. Let us know if you like it. Write us in. Liam at Crime Over Wine, Michelle at Crime Over Wine, Heather at Crime Over Wine, even though she's not here this week, she'll still get it. And just tell us what you think, because we want to make sure that we're giving you guys as much as we can.
Yeah, and in your communities, if there's someone that has gone missing, we want to help get the word out. So contact us. Tell us, what's going on, and we will work on our end to get as much information out there as we can, because it's all about coming together, and, one piece of information can reach the right person, and it can help bring someone home.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and, if you just can't get enough of Crime Over Wine, because, there's so much to go around. Follow all of us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We will see you next Monday for the next episode of Crime Over Wine Weekly, and we'll see you this Wine Wednesday for your regularly scheduled episode of Crime Over Wine.
Proud member of the Podnuga Network.